Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about 3 ways you probably don't know you're sabotaging your relationship. So it could be in marriage, it could be a long-standing relationship, it could be just getting to know somebody, it could be dating, it could be friendship, it could be parenting. We all have relationships. We have family dynamics, and we keep getting into trouble because we blame the other person, we lie to ourselves and to them, and our body language gives us up. These are the 3 ways that you are probably unaware of or unconscious of what happens in a relationship. So I have lots of criteria and experience, my own experience, clients, friends. We all have these stories in our head, and some of it, we were raised, we were raised by a relationship, right? There is, even if you had a single parent or 2 parents raising you, there was a dynamic there, and that person modeled how to have relationships. They modeled the relationship between the 2 of you, and they modeled relationships that they had with partners or friendships out in the world, right? How they talk about other people, how you talk about your workplace, how you talk about that person that annoys and irritates you. It's being modeled for our children. It's being modeled for those around us. And, we are the average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves around. So if you look at the average 5 people you spend the most time with, we start acting like them. How do they treat other people? How are their relationships? And it ends up being an average of how you relationship and how you perceive and value your relationships. So let's take number 1. I'm going to give you a story, a scenario of, and it is not a new story. There are no new problems. We think that my problem is so much different than your problem, that what happens to me in my marriage is different than what happens in yours. And it's just not. So this scenario has come up so many times. It makes me laugh. So scenario of one person feels like the other person isn't doing enough. So one person gives a lot to the relationship. They feel like they give a lot to the relationship, and they are resentful that the other person doesn't do as much as they do, or there's an expectation that because I do this, they'll do that. There's also, we might feel like the person doesn't really love us because we're not getting the attention we want. Just recently, somebody said to me, I don't think they see my value. How do you feel when you believe that thought, that this person that I do so much for doesn't see my value and doesn't consider our relationship important, doesn't spend time with me? And that will feed a big resentment. That will feed emotional pain, right? And then when we start going down that journey of blaming that it's this other person isn't giving me what I need, and this other person doesn't care about me, I'm blaming them. I'm I start feeling angry at them. And it's so funny with anger, as we keep going over and over and over the evidence that it's their fault, it makes us more mad and more mad. So there is absolutely no place for blame in a relationship you care about. And this is another tool that I like to often practice, because it takes practice. And you want to hold the relationship sacred. If someone really is important to you, then there's certain things that you want to give that person the benefit of the doubt. You want to hold that relationship sacred. And there's going to be things that when you notice I'm getting angry, when I notice I'm pointing the finger at them and blaming them that it's their fault, I'm going to pause before I say anything, before I try to figure it out. And I'm gonna stop myself and pause and really ask myself, would I rather be right? Would I rather be happy? Do I still love this person? And do I still want to create a safe place for us to be vulnerable and intimate? I have to do something about the blame. I have to take responsibility for the blame and my feelings, and do my part of letting it go. And there's lots of letting go techniques, but the first part is really, is this relationship worth it to me? And hopefully, I love saving marriages, and I think deep down we all want to stay married. And sometimes there's circumstances that it just doesn't work out. And believe me, I understand that. I've been through a divorce. It's very painful. And it is like, it's a death of a fairy tale to get a divorce. We've been reading fairy tales and story time since we were young that happily ever after is real. Happily ever after takes work, and it takes humility, and it takes letting go of blame. There's no place for blame. And so what we do is we look at, if I'm blaming somebody, I'm not choosing the relationship. I'm basically choosing myself, because I'm taking whatever it is, and I'm pointing the finger. And I'm sure you've heard this one, where if you're pointing the finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointed back at me. So this works both ways. When someone is pointing their finger at you, it was also a signal for me, if I felt blamed, if someone was blaming me, that I also could pause, and that whoever is blaming is in the wrong. Now, it doesn't mean that this gives me a free pass to disregard everything they say and just and call them wrong, and blame has no place in this relationship. And yet it helped me see, when someone was blaming me, that I don't have to take it personal, because it isn't about me, it's about them. Somehow they're triggered, somehow they're afraid, and the easiest way out is to point a finger. So it works both ways. When I point the finger, that's true, and when they point the finger, that's true. So what I've learned is when I feel a finger pointed at me, or I'm pointing the finger, it's because whoever is pointing the finger is afraid. They're in self-centered fear. They're insecure. They need to feel better about themselves, so they have to put somebody down so they can raise themselves up. Whoever they are pointing the finger at, it is not personal. It is all about what the pain inside is all about. And so that gives me some compassion. It can give me compassion for the person. It gives me compassion for myself. And there's tools to kind of take responsibility for the blame and really seeing what my part is in the situation. Where am I playing the victim? Where am I being inconsiderate? Where am I using blame as an excuse or a distraction? Because the truth is that when we love somebody, we need forgiveness, you know? And there's evidence. Our brain likes to go to black and white thinking. And so it's like, well, of course it's his fault. He doesn't see my value. And what we did is ask questions. We used the logic side of the mind, the logical side of the mind, to ask questions about, is it really true so-and-so doesn't value me? Can I absolutely know he doesn't value me at all? He's never valued me. He doesn't see my worth. And the answer to that question is going to be no, because you can't possibly know the absolute truth about a negative thought you are projecting at somebody else. So it's not true. It is our subconscious mind trying to keep us safe. So just recognize that when I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else, ask the question, is it true? Is it absolutely true? And even if it's like, well, it's mostly true, then that gives us a door to open the mind that something else also could be true. Like, he does value me. He does know my worth. So we need to look for 3 ways he does value me. He does see my worth. Another way to look at it, and Byron Katie, amazing. This is her tool. And she asks questions to stop arguing with reality. Because the reality is, I feel this certain way and I'm blaming somebody. And when I put it on paper and I ask myself, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? The answer is always no. And then I am rewiring my brain. I'm using logic and direction to rewire the way I perceive that someone doesn't value me by looking for, well, what are the ways he does value me and see me and give me attention? Well, and in this situation, she was able to remember that her husband does ask her for permission when he goes out with the boys, right? And so that is evidence that he does care. So we come up with, he says hello to me and good morning with a cheerful voice in the morning when he sees me. He gives me a hug when he comes home from work. I have to train my brain to look for the evidence that someone does value me, that someone does appreciate me. And the other part of this is that it's no one else's responsibility to love you, give you attention. No one else can give you your value. No one else can give you your worth. So what are you doing to value yourself? What are you doing to know your worth? And that is, and I need 3 examples that you know what you're worth, that you give yourself attention, because that is the self-care and the self-love and the esteem building. That it's not, often when we're blaming or having to put somebody down, it's because our own self-esteem is low. So I put you down to raise me up. And this is hard truth to uncover, because we don't want to be wrong. We want to be right, but it comes at a cost. And so if I can humble myself enough to, okay, this is where I'm at, and where do I want to be? And if I'm not looking outside myself to know if I'm loved, to get attention, how can I take responsibility for that love and attention I'm seeking outside of myself? What does that look like? What self-care items can I do to raise my self-esteem so that I'm raising the way I feel about myself, and then that helps me lift other people. There's no reason to put someone else down. There just isn't. And when we find ourselves doing it, we can look towards ourselves. That means, oh, that inner part of me is really wanting attention, because it's looking to blame and put other people down so that I can feel better about myself. So you can only imagine that if I am blaming somebody and believing a negative thought, what my body language does. So the second way that we don't realize we sabotage our relationship is our body language, because there's these stories going on inside of our head. And if we do not control them and monitor them and rewire them, they come out in our body language. So it's a signal. And if you can be aware of your body language giving a signal, it's another way to bring us into the light, bring us into the truth, bring us into awareness of there's something going on. And I'll tell you, there's a trick, because in your tone, you'll hear it in your tone too. Words mean very little. It is the body language and tone that goes along with them that are communicating the most with another person. And without being a body language expert, you read body language and you can tell when someone is closed off. Even if they say, I'm fine, you can tell when someone is open. You can tell when someone loves you. You can tell when someone's avoiding you or hiding because of where they put their eyes, right? When I'm having a hard time and emotionally I feel down, or things are on my mind, I can feel my husband looking at me, and I don't want to look because I don't want him to see I'm in pain. So there's, and that's a signal to me that, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of someone seeing that I'm having a tough time. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where, someone might touch your hand and it raises the hair on the back of your head, or someone wants to give you a hug, but you're like, you don't really want to give them a hug. So body language is a form of communication, and we're talking about it because I want to bring it to your awareness, because when we don't heed the signal body language is giving, you can sabotage your relationship, because your partner, you can logically, you could hear the story of me wanting to avoid eye contact with my husband as he could say, she doesn't love me. She doesn't look at me like she used to. you know? And in that moment, he might feel like unloved, or something's, come up with his own story of why I don't want to gaze into his eyes. When we're mad at somebody, even if we think we're faking it, it comes out in our body language. It does. And people can read it, and you are not fooling anybody. So we want to take a look at that. And again, we look at, writing is such a great tool. Tapping is such a great tool. Meditation is such a great tool. Prayer is a great tool. There is, coaching is a great tool, because sometimes I'll get stuck in something, and it's like I'm holding on to this experience, and I'm holding on to the blame, and I can't let it go. So when you're in that kind of situation and you're aware and noticing, like, yeah, I'm so mad, I can't even fake it anymore. And it's sabotaging your relationship without even saying anything. So you can be like, well, I didn't say anything, but you're keeping the wall up to have a vulnerable, intimate, loving, and kind relationship. The body language is actually hindering that. And a lot of people don't realize that has something to do with sabotaging a relationship. Okay. Number 3 is lying. And no one wants to admit they're a liar. So I'm going to give you some examples of how I lie, how clients lie, how in a relationship, to save face, we lie, and people will say, well, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. So it's an okay lie because, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And we use that as an excuse to not be honest about what we're thinking, about what we really want, what we need. And this can absolutely sabotage a relationship. So I'll start with an easy one. So when my friend was talking about her husband always asks if he can go out with the boys, and she always says yes, because of the fear of saying no, that he would leave anyway, right? Or if she said no and he stayed home, he would just be moping and pouting, right? So she says yes, even though it's not the truth, to avoid these 2 other scenarios that are all in her head, right? This happens all the time. We say, sure, do whatever you want. And really we're harboring a resentment, because what we really want is not to give permission for him or her to go off with their friends. We want attention, and we want to go out with them, and we want to spend time with them. And it feels like, we might even be jealous that they're taking care of themselves and we're not. And so it's like, well, I wish I could go out with my friends. Have you planned anything? No, because we're not really being honest about our own needs, our own wants, our own desires. And it's not about controlling the person. If they ask for permission to go out and I say, I love you and I feel like I haven't spent any time with you, and I was really looking forward to spending some one-on-one time with you. And there's a lot to do around the house, and I feel, overwhelmed with that. And I could really use your help tonight. I also understand it's important to take care of yourself and hang out with the boys. I just wanted to let you know where I was at, and I'll let you choose. When we don't put an ultimatum on it, when we can just say the truth, and not go to the controlling side, because that's usually what happens. It's like, you know, I have an expectation that if I say no, you know, I can control you and make you do what I want you to do. And that's not what a relationship is either. Honesty is part of having a good relationship. And we need to create a relationship where it's safe to say, I'm feeling resentful about you going because there's so much going on at home. And I know you get a lot from hanging out with the boys. And I feel like I haven't hung out with the girls. And, you know, just being honest, like that creates a solid relationship. And this goes into our friendships. It goes into our parents. We're afraid to say no to our parents because we feel obligated to say yes. And then we're resentful that we said yes because we didn't really want to, because we're afraid. We're afraid. We're afraid they're not going to love us. We're afraid of what they think about us. We're afraid we're not a good daughter or a good child or a good parent if, you know, we do something, that we say something that's the truth. You know, let's go into, you know, if this is a classic one of someone saying, you know, do you like my outfit? Do I look fat? Does it make my butt look big? Be careful what you ask for, because if you want to have honesty, then don't ask questions you don't want the truth for. I would not want, I want someone to say what I want them to say, which is, you look great, you look skinny, that's the best color you've ever had. You know, I don't want to hear the opposite of any of that, right? So don't ask then, because if you are asking how something looks and somebody doesn't like, and they're honest, you aren't going to be, you're going to blame them, and your body language is going to come out. And so really, even asking a question that we don't want an answer to is also lying, because I'm being dishonest that I want your opinion, you know? Lying is an interesting one because, well, it's, you know, it's part of the commandments. Like, thou shalt not lie. Like that, we're not supposed to lie. We're supposed to be honest, right? But the truth is, we're not perfect. And as human beings, it is a coping mechanism. It's a survival mechanism. And this isn't to beat anybody up. It's just to, if we want to create more honesty, we need to see where I'm not being honest. And I've only been married to my husband for 4 years, and I want him to love me. I already went through a divorce. And so there's these stories in my head that I have to act a certain way and say a certain thing so that he won't leave me, or we won't fight, or, you know, just pick one. Like there's so, you know, and of course I don't want to hurt his feelings, right? And so I've also gotten into, you know, disregarding needs and wants and desires because I'm afraid to hurt his feelings. But doesn't my partner and my husband and my marriage deserve to know who I really am? I mean, basically, I'm lying about who I am. And how does that get me happiness when I'm lying about who I really am? Doesn't our partner get to know? Wouldn't it be nice if he could really get to know me? you know, and that it would be safe to say what my desires are, what my dreams are, even if they don't align with him. And it's not about having an expectation of, it's just about being real and authentic, and creating a safe place that we can hear one another and trust one another and not take it personal if somebody gets their feelings hurt, because we're going to get our feelings hurt. That's, if we can look beyond taking it personal, that someone's trying to share who they are with me, and that it's not about me, you know, and wanting to spend time, to go on a retreat or a girls' night, or take time to go to the gym, or take time to be by myself, is not, it has nothing to do with my partner. But it could be easily taken as they're spending all this time away, that they don't, really love me, or they don't value me, or see my worth. And those stories need to be looked at. They need to be talked about. We need to communicate more. And I love, living a life of consultation, because when you have people in your life, like a coach or a mentor or a therapist, someone that you found that it really is safe to say what your truth is, and it's not going to be used against you, like, those are the people in your life that know you, that could help you discern whether or not, the thinking is right, and we get to practice. We get to practice having healthy relationships. The whole point of this is to be aware of the 3 things that we do to sabotage a relationship that are really unconscious. We don't even realize that our body language is communicating to somebody else what we think. We don't realize that pointing the finger at somebody is never going to be appropriate in a relationship I care about. It's just not. There's no room for blame. And so if I can notice that I'm blaming and recognize that means I'm sabotaging my relationship. And do I really want to do that, or do I want to look at this in another way? And finally, being honest. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, because we put these expectations that if I just say the right thing, someone's going to love me. And what we do is we don't have a real relationship. It's superficial. And we don't understand why somebody else has walls up, or won't share, or won't talk. And it's because there's not a safe place to be yourself, and it's not safe for them to be themselves. So these are the signals. These are the tools I wanted to make you aware of, that we all do. We all do them, and it sabotages your relationship. So it comes down to, would I rather be right, or would I rather be happy? And my son always says, can't I be both? I've found when it comes to relationships, being right is worth giving up. Being right is worth having the tool of humility to let go of it. Because relationships can be the greatest joy and happiness you've ever had. I know that they are for me. And sometimes relationships are hard, and they are so worth it. That's why you're never going to find that love outside of yourself. And I really think that the most important relationship you have is with yourself and with a higher power, because that relationship is what is going to prepare you to really love somebody else. And we can't give what we don't have. So if I'm not in love with myself, if I'm not in love with a power greater than myself, I can't fill up the tank. And really, I need something that is divine, that is God, that is a power greater than myself, to show me what real love is. Because people are people, they're human beings doing the best they can, and we all have our pain and suffering that we've endured, and that makes us act funny sometimes. So when I can go to a higher source of love and feel that and cultivate love within, and really bond with myself and be patient and loving and tolerant and gentle and practice these principles with love, I am able to more freely give it to others. And I really believe that we're here to love one another. As the good book says, love one another as I have loved you. I'll see you next time.